Hey, Boaz here from Next Pittsburgh, and we're here in the lobby at WQED, but we're going behind the scenes today on a special edition of Yinzer Backstage Pass. We're meeting up with Paul Byers, who's worked here for over 50 years. Is that right, Paul?
Yes, that's right, Boaz. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having us. And already I see a few very familiar things.
Yes, you will see the King Friday's Castle and Exeal's tree here from the neighborhood of Make Believe. These, unfortunately, are not the originals, but if you could not tell them from the original. The originals are at the Heinz History Center. These were made for the Tom Hanks movie. It was made here, right here in the studio, about 4 years ago, I think.
And I guess you would know that they look like the original because you're probably pretty familiar with the originals.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm very, very familiar. In fact, they're so like the originals that it's unbelievable. We were, just in awe of the set builders that made these pieces when they put them into the studio for the movie. It was just like being back home again. It was great.
Wow. And what was your first job when you started here?
Well, my first job here was I was actually the tape librarian, which is a job that doesn't exist anymore because we don't use videotape. Everything is digital now. Then I just worked my way up through all the different positions here and became the director of engineering about 26 years ago.
And so right inside here is the actual studio where they filmed Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood along with a ton of other shows.
Many, many, many other shows over the years. I mean, a series we used to do back in the 70s called the Previn and the Pittsburgh. So Andre Previn was the conductor, but John Williams was the guest conductor here. So he was in this very studio with the entire symphony, and you'll see it looks a little bit different today because we're setting up for an event that's happening here next week.
And how often are you filming in here these days?
Not too often anymore. I mean, when we built this building and moved in here in around 1970, there was no way to make TV shows outside of the studio. You'd have to shoot them on film, and it was cumbersome to bring the big TV cameras out on location. So we had these three big studios, and we used them all the time. Mr. Rogers' show was made in here for like 10 months out of the year. In our next door studio, Studio B, we made all of our local shows. And then the small studio, Studio C, we had a live news show. Now it's almost totally the opposite. Everything we do is shot on location, brought back into the edit room to be, put together into the program. And then the studios, unfortunately, sit empty most of the time.
And so through the 70s, 80s, 90s, most of the year, this was all Mr. Rogers for those few decades.
Exactly. Fred made his first Mr. Rogers show in 1968, and so he made it from the old studios down there. But the bulk of the shows were made in this studio right here where we're standing right now.
And so how was it laid out? Where was his house? Where was the band sitting?
The back wall of the studio there are where these clouds are. And then you can see King Friday's Castle is over here in the corner. Here's Exeal's tree right in the middle, and all the other pieces, and the walkway, which had to be painted for every show because we repainted over it when the shows were done. Yeah, right. So that was kind of tedious. You can see how you can see it here.
Wow. And so under this floor, are there 30 iterations of that painting?
Hundreds. Yeah, but that was only half of the show. The neighborhood of Make Believe. There was also Fred's house, which then the neighborhood had to be totally struck out, moved to a warehouse over in Lawrenceville, and then his other set, which was his house, the fish tank and the couch and the traffic light and the little trolley track, and that whole thing had to be reset, and then we would do that. So we would do all the neighborhood of Make Believe scenes for probably 5 shows at a time, and then strike the neighborhood set, and then build the house set, and then do the same 5 shows, and then editing, we would put that all together. We used to call these studios A, B, and C. Obviously, it makes sense, but now this one has been renamed to the Fred Rogers Studio. Fred's spirit is kind of still in this building too. I think it always will be. It's kind of cool to be, just to kind of know that he was here and walk these same steps that we're on right now. Let's go into Studio C, which is also our cooking and pledge studio.
Oh, wow, this is smaller than I expected. I always imagined the kitchen would be bigger somehow.
Isn't it funny? Yeah, it's all the magic of television. But we just redid this it's a brand new kitchen set. And this all, the whole set itself with the lighted WQED signs and these old test patterns here is all brand new. Actually, I don't think we've actually even nobody's seen it on television yet. We're going to...
this is the exclusive sneak peek right here.
It is indeed, yeah. The first show, I think we're going to do a show at the end of this month. Chris Fenimore, who's our local cooking guru.
Needs no introduction.
Yeah, right, exactly. He's been doing this for almost 30 years now. He spent some time in Rome this past year. So the show we're going to do in a couple of weeks will be featuring those Italian cooking recipes. So it should be a really good show. The set was designed by the same set designer who did the Mr. Rogers set for the movie. His name Greg Weimerskirch, and he's actually a local Pittsburgh guy. He went to Carnegie Mellon. He does movies, set designs all over the world. He did this work for us pro bono, which turned out really cool, I think.
If you did it for free, that's so nice.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, he's a big fan of public television and WQED in particular, and this is kind of cool. These are what we call test patterns. I don't know, neither one of you are young enough to remember what a test pattern is, but it used to be, we weren't on the air 24 hours a day. We'd sign off around midnight. When we'd sign back on or sign off, we would put up this test pattern, and people could actually use it to adjust their televisions.
This is like, but wait, there's more. There's also a radio station here.
That's right. And you might want to stick our head in and say hello to a couple of people. This is Brian Savar, who really keeps the whole thing going. He puts all the playlists together and decides on the programming and keeps Jim and Anna from going too crazy. And every one of these cabinets, all the way around, stacked to the ceiling, is full of CDs. And I think Hey Anna, what's our last count of how many CDs we have here?
All of these drawers are filled. So here we have a drawer of recordings that you've probably never even heard of, from Summit and from Supraphon. These are sort of Czech recordings, Czechoslovakian. So it's just a lot of fun to find all this music. And then we have tons of operas here up on the wall. So that's what we do here. We just had a world premiere. The last time it was done was in 1730 over in Italy. And now Quantum Theater is presenting a brand new version of Riccardo Broschi's Idaspe. So it's like, oh my gosh, it's not been heard since 1730, and Pittsburgh is doing it, and we will have that on the air.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Gosh, that sounds exciting. You're making me excited about it.
You should. It's very exciting. It has been amazing. I had a chance to see it, and it was like, oh my goodness, I'll never hear people sing like that again. Being able to program the music, that's what I do for the station, has been a journey. Like I say, I find new music every day.
So this is where you could, record a pianist or any kind of musician.
Yeah, sometimes we'll do. Actually, they'll come in here and play live. One time though, we had this. I think it was a 27-piece accordion band from the Netherlands was in here, and none of them spoke English, so it was kind of tough to get them, all coordinated on when to start and stop and everything. But they were kind of really packed in here too.
27 people?
Yes, right. All playing accordions. Nobody. This is actually Rick Seaback's edit room, where he does, puts all of his Pittsburgh-based programs on together, and you can see Rick's a bit of a.
He's a collector.
He's a collector, yes. But anyways, I'm sorry he's not here today to say a few words to you too, because he usually is here most days. Let's walk around to the master control room. We can actually walk right in.
There's no one here. Are you concerned about that? Shouldn't someone be watching this?
No, I mean, well, it used to be, and we'll go back, back from the inception until about 10 years ago. There was always somebody in master control because they had to be. We didn't have an automation system. Remember, back before digital, we only had one channel on the air, so one person could fairly easily keep track of, changing a program from one to the other. Now that we have 5 channels, one person could never do that alone. So we have an automation system that runs everything, and it's reliable enough so that we've now made the decision to that nobody needs to be here.
I mean, you've seen so many changes in media over the years. So were you skeptical, where you're like, I don't know about this digital stuff, get rid of these beta tapes, these seem pretty good? What was that journey like for you?
Well, I don't know, it's sort of more like a natural progression, because I'd seen it go from when I started here, we were recording on what was called 2-inch tapes. So the tapes were actually 2 inches wide.
Wow.
And we were editing them with a razor blade. And you had to do it, you had a microscope, and you would put the tape underneath the microscope, and you'd take a little brush and you'd paint this solution onto it. You know, remember, it's not like film where you can hold it up to the light and see the picture. It's just a piece of brown plastic, you know, that's got.
How do you know what you're doing?
Well, you did by just looking at the what we called the sync pulse, and you'd cut with the razor blade and then tape it together. And then when it played through the machine, you would sort of pray that the splice didn't break.
Well, can we take a peek at the archives and see some of that 2-inch tape?
Sure. Yes, we can. Let's go.
So what is this tape that we're looking at? This is
Previn in the Pittsburgh, Stephen Sondheim from March 1st, 1977.
oh my gosh, that seems so cool. Have you why aren't we showing this now on QED? I would love to watch Stephen Sondheim.
That's what we keep saying, but unfortunately, the problem with most of the stuff that we have is that we can't get the broadcast rights to it because, you know, if somebody else owns them and it would be too expensive to purchase them out.
So you've been here over 50 years. Do you have a retirement plan, or do you think you'll just try to stick it out another 50 years?
That's what my wife keeps telling me, you know. Yeah, I think I do have a retirement plan, but I'm not sure. Right now, I think we're actually working on trying to find somebody to replace me, and we'll see if that happens. But I suspect it probably won't be until next year sometime at the earliest.
Well, Paul, thanks so much for taking the time to show us around. This has really been awesome.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.